The following program is rated TVMA. This program may contain strong opinions, explicit language, and possible adult themes. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the Smoke-Free Radio Network or its affiliates. This program is meant for mature adult audience. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Hey folks, P. Basardo here, and you're listening to the Smoke-Free Radio Network.
That was interesting.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Vaping in the Mic. I'm Mike Peterson. I am flying by the skin of my pants this evening. I'll tell you what, it's trying to get everything done. It's kind of, because I was going to do one thing, and at the last minute I'm like, well, let's do something completely different. Okay, well, I think I can manage that. Meanwhile, I'm on here asking Bill Tarling for his help and going, oh my God, how do I do this? How do I do that? So it'll be a nice, interesting kind of evening as we go along. And I appreciate people coming in and dropping in and saying, hey, there's not a whole ton of things. I'm not going to have anybody on this evening because everyone and their mother is pressed up against the wall for scheduling time, for getting things done for the holidays. So we're just going to sit. There's a couple of pieces of news that I really want to talk about. And then we're going to get into a couple of, I want to say that they are rebuttals. Yes, Bill, I'm wearing pants. I'm not going to stand up. Fuck that. But yes, I'm wearing pants this evening. But there's a couple pieces of things that are a rebuttal to what you're seeing coming out of the FDA, the Surgeon General, and all this other crap. And the one, honest to God, the one is like, it's a video 5 years old, but I really want everybody to see the whole thing because there's a lot of information in it. But I will tell you, the first thing that I want everybody to take a look at is that wonderful piece of news that everybody has already heard. Now today, our favorite company has now had an honest-to-God investment from these wonderful people at Altria. And it was like a huge $12.8 billion investment for a 35% stake of the company. Okay, you know, everybody that's in the vaping world, we pretty much knew, or we heard somebody that was talking about this that knew and clued us in. You know, that this pod system was going to be bought by a cigarette manufacturer. There is no doubt about it. But there was something in this article that, honest to God, caught my attention. And I'll scroll down. Even though it's $12.8 billion. Check this out. In part of their agreement, Altria must also use its database and its distribution network to get out to current smoke. Folks, do you understand what this means? And there's this other little piece that I'm going to show you just right offhand. And I went and said, okay, Altria owns Philip Morris. And all I did was do a quick Google. They own Philip Morris, makers of your ever happy Marlboro brand. Right. So when you go back and you take a look at this garbage, I can't really call it garbage. Somebody out there, when they went to do this, they made some business decisions. They've done whatever it is that they really want to do. Okay. But this now gives Juul access to the makers of Marlboro, their database and distribution network. Can you see where that's going to go? It's nowhere small. Not at all. Database and distribution network is talking about a worldwide platform. Everywhere that Marlboro is sold, you're going to see Juul. Everywhere. And if you think for a moment that Marlboro is going to, or Altria is going to sit back and go, oh, we don't want to sell in C-stores and truck stops and there's going to be an uprising, and if there hasn't been, I'd be surprised. But there's going to be a lot of people talking about this that are saying, hey, aren't they doing something? Where does Juul really stand? If they're going to become married at the hip, or at least in bed together with, and they have claimed, they turn around, they said, we understand the controversy and skepticism and all this other stuff. So we were skeptical as well. Gee, I bet you $12.8 billion erased the shit out of that skepticism real quick, didn't it? Now, I'm going to guess, just off the top of my head. But it kills me. It just absolutely kills me. That's a huge, and for 35%, now the company is valuated like $38 billion or something. But there's another one that really gets me. If we go back to when this first kind of broke the news cycle, where the employees of Juul were having a cow because they were going to sell to a cigarette maker, right? The employees were starting to become up in arms, and they had a lot of reservations and a lot of this. Well, parent company said, our reservations, we were concerned, right? $12.8 billion later. $12.8 billion. Oh my God. But anyhow, getting back to the employees of this wonderfully fantastic company that makes pod systems. The employees had a problem that they were going to sell out, right? So floating around on the web today, what did I find? It's plastered in some of the most obvious places. Let's see, because they made a $12.8 billion investment, would you look at that? Juul employees will each get, and now I can't say that this is corroborated evidence, but this is what's floating around. The average bonus will be $1.3 million for every Juul employee. Boy, I wonder if they got their concerns eradicated as well. $1.3 million in a bonus for the people that worked at Juul. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to throw that under the bus real quick. Yeah, and I know that this is going to cause a lot of controversy. I know that it will. We all do. I'll be looking forward to seeing, what really comes about from it. You've got this huge company that has turned around, made that sale. They're going to become mega international. Their employees just made $1.3 million in a bonus. If people in that building aren't celebrating, you'd be surprised, wouldn't you? That's the Juul part of all of this. I'm not going to sit and rant and rave about that, because I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's going to turn around and it's going to make all of us, massively upset. Yeah, you're right, Bill. Getting all of Juul placed next to Marlboro. So you're going to see Juul right next to Marlboro. And I'm checking in the chat room. Mr. Gorlitz, how you doing? I see Mr. John Clemens. Mr. John Clemens, I'm going to take a minute just for a second. Folks, I need you to go look at my webpage. Scroll down a little bit until you see a happy family of 4 people, all right? John and his wife have a small problem. And I know that either John or Kelly are probably going to shoot me for talking about it, but we're only going to take a moment. If you would scroll down on my webpage, on my Facebook page, until you see husband, wife, 2 kids. They have a GoFundMe started, and it's really close to the damn holiday. John had an accident in his vehicle. They're maxed out with their capability. All they need is $700 to be able to pay for their insurance and to be able to pay to get their car back on the road. And it's a new car for them. So if you can, help out. Go check it out. I really appreciate it. But Mr. Gorlitz, I see you in there, Mr. Jarvis. Mark. And Mr. Foster Long. I'm just checking things out as we're going along. So you can see that Juul has turned around and they have become more than a massive disruption in the vape industry. They have become the 2,000-pound gorilla that nobody knows what the hell they're going to do. Nobody knows where they're going to be going. Nobody has any clue. We can all speculate. There's some people that probably do know, and they're being kind of quiet, which is cool. Yeah, more smokers, dual use. There's a big one right there, Bill Tarling. The next thing that I really want to talk about for a minute, earlier this week, you may have had the functional disoddity to see this stuff paraded around on stage in a live press conference. On the left, on the very far left, you've got the Surgeon General. On the very far right, you have the Director of the FDA. I honestly, the lady that's standing next to the Surgeon General, I didn't pay attention to her, and I don't know what the young lady's name is either, but she's a minor. And this whole cascading event went on for an hour, and I listened to part of it until I started to get sick. And I mean, it honest to God, it started to make me nauseous. Because I turned around, and I'm hearing the words epidemic, nicotine use, and a bunch of horrid, what we know to be false information. And it was all slanted to make themselves appear or be whatever. But what absolutely blew my mind was that young lady that's standing up there. They asked her to speak about a couple of different things, and they asked her a couple of questions. But putting her on that stage with those people, for the people that just watch TV or whatever, gave it the overall appearance of, oh, somehow in the back of the brain it registered, this must be a professional kind of person. No, this is a minor, an adolescent that is giving her opinion. And that's all it is opinion. Or, at best, anecdotal evidence, which the Surgeon General turned around and he used as well. How you doing, Ed? Ryan? It's one of those things where you keep seeing all of this. And you keep seeing all of this garbage about the epidemic, about all of the negativity. And I'm like, okay. So I did something. And I appreciate it. I got hold of this gentleman, Brent Stafford, who runs and is the executive producer for Regulator Watch. And I asked him if I could use some of his clip and some of his information that he did with a gentleman. And you'll pardon me, I've got so many slides and so many things that are going on. I asked him if I could use part of his information that he did with this gentleman, Dr. David Abrams. Now, I'm going to tell you, in all of this, there is, and I told him Dr. David Abrams, has a list of credentials making him one of the foremost, right up there with Dr. Farsalinos, makes him one of the foremost authorities. Okay? The foremost front-running authority in tobacco harm reduction, in talking about nicotine, in talking about health, in talking about everything. It makes him truly, honest to God, if you, and I'm going to put this in here, because this is the link to the Regulator Watch Facebook side, okay? And you can go check out his website, check out all of the material that he has, but go and watch this entire video, because the first, it looks like it's made for movie. It scrolls right out of nowhere, and it lists all of Dr. Abrams' credentials, everything that he has done, everything that he has written, all the case studies, everything. Okay? And I seriously, I want you to go and check it out, because Regulator Watch and Brent Stafford have a lot of other fantastic videos, not only about the vaping industry, but things that are going on worldwide. All right, so please go check out Regulator Watch. But here is a clip that I want you to see, because while the jokers were standing on stage and talking about all of the nicotine epidemics and all of the stuff, there's this from Dr. David Abrams.
Well, we know that the 30-day past use is a suspect measurement anyhow, isn't it?
Well, it is. It seems to be more reliable as a measure of experimentation, curiosity, and novelty. What we do know when we look at the whole context is that the vast majority of youth who are using these products are already also using cigarettes or other tobacco products. And they also are trying marijuana, alcohol, and other products. So these are the kids who generally are risk-taking, and we expect some of that among youth and adolescents. It's the way youth are. And so we're not sure how much of this is over and above what we'd expect anyway. And when you progress to daily use, that's where there's been more concern. And if you look at the daily use patterns, cigarette use is still the most frequent product used daily. And e-cigarette use is more common for any past 30-day use, but not for daily use at all.
Dr. Abrams, for parents out there, they're looking for an answer regarding vaping that's not couched in terms that have a bunch of equivocations and stuff like that from regulation. They just want to know. They want to know, is it safe?
Sure, and that's the first obvious question. And there's been a lot of confusion out there that is cast in scientific terms. So first, let me say I'm both a parent and now a grandparent of a 14-year-old granddaughter who has in fact asked me about vaping. So what I'm going to say now is what I would say to my own grandchild as well as to anybody else. And to the best of our knowledge of the science, vaping is much safer than smoking any combusted or burning any tobacco product. So the answer is unequivocally, it's much safer. It's obviously not completely safe. Nothing is if you're going to do something. So nicotine can be addictive, but when you decouple the smoke from the toxic chemicals in the burning of tobacco from the nicotine, you have a much safer product. There's no question that I would rather my granddaughter did nothing and didn't use anything, but I want her to know the whole truth, which is, yes, vaping is much safer than smoking any type of cigarette.
again and again and again. And yeah, I just caught that, Bill. I'm sitting here going, you see my mouth going like this. That gentleman, Dr. David Abrams, is so well credentialed that it's not even funny. And I'm just going to repeat this again. Thank you to Brent Stafford for allowing me to use that clip and his material. People need to hear this very thing, saying, we're not trying to tell you that this is, I have something perfectly safe. Untrue. Nobody in the vaping industry is telling you that. We are saying it is at least 95% safer. And so when you see now here again, I keep going right back to when you see these people claiming, oh my God, teen epidemic, vaping, who knows what. When you see all of that, try to keep in mind, please try to keep in mind what that doctor had just said. But there is an even better one. And I'm going to show it to you right now. This is about a 7-minute clip. Again, it's 5 minutes old. But if Dimitri Agrafiotis had not sent me a link to it, I wouldn't know about it. I would never have heard about it. I would have never even seen it. And people today need to see this same thing.
Hi, this is Father Jack back again, this time to talk about this silly, crazy notion that somehow people get addicted to nicotine and electronic cigarettes. It's nonsensical. It's used by the anti-nicotine tobacco zealots, the ants, to have just one more reason why they should ban these things. And it's ridiculous because it's not true. There is no such thing as addiction to electronic cigarettes. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, I think I'm addicted because I vape just as much as I ever smoked, and I want to help you understand why that's not exactly the same. There is a huge, important difference. I'm qualified, I think, to talk about this both personally as a recovering smoker and now a vapor, but also professionally as I am a professor of addiction studies at a local community college, and I also teach things like pharmacology and addiction studies at a university. I know my stuff personally and professionally, and I've certainly studied this in every way, shape, or form. So what I am, and what many of you are, is perhaps dependent on nicotine or dependent on electronic cigarettes. And you say, well, what's the difference? Dependency, addiction, same thing. No, it's not the same thing. Very important distinction, because you can be dependent on a substance without being addicted to it, and you can be addicted to a substance without being dependent on it. So it is a big difference. With addiction, you need treatment, you need help. It's a different ballgame. So let me just give you the real nutshell of all this. Anybody can use a substance, right? Everybody does, medicine, whatever, normal. Sometimes we abuse substances. When we take that third Tylenol because we think our headache is so bad, and gosh, you know what happened when grandma had that second glass of champagne at your sister's wedding. Whoa. Okay. Sometimes people abuse substances. My fraternity guys, they're professional abusers because they think every Friday and Saturday night it's their job to deliberately get as drunk as possible. Well, that's not alcoholism. That's not addiction, right? That's just stupid, right? So there's use, there's abuse or misuse. Then we have this thing called dependency. Now, dependency is merely the body's reaction to being accustomed to a certain kind of chemical that has the properties of punishing you for stopping using it. Now, the real simple, obvious example of that is caffeine. I drink a lot of coffee. Many of you drink a lot of coffee, and we enjoy the mild stimulant effects of caffeine. But caffeine itself has this property that it acclimates to your body in such a way that, gosh, if I didn't drink coffee tomorrow morning, by noon, I'm going to have severe headaches. That's a withdrawal symptom of a drug. It doesn't mean I'm addicted to it, right? We make jokes about caffeine junkies and all that sort of thing. But that's not addiction. Addiction is a different ballgame whatsoever. Because basically, caffeine dependency does not have negative consequences. Not to me. It might if you're pregnant or have a heart condition, but most people, it's merely a simple dependency. That's different than addiction. Addiction involves loss of control, making you careless of people's welfare, and a whole list of other things. But the main criteria is persistent use despite negative consequences. You keep doing it, even though you know it's going to hurt you. You keep doing it anyway, and no matter how bad things get. That's what addiction is. And that's why smoking may qualify as an addiction. Certainly, I spent too much money on it. I did it in spite of how it was harming my health, the smell, all that stuff. You could maybe argue that smoking was. But I wasn't addicted to nicotine. I was addicted to smoking. Because smoking is a lot more than just ingesting nicotine, right? The ritual of opening a pack of cigarettes, smelling it, the way we light it, the way we converse with other people while we smoke. It's a biopsychosocial phenomenon. It involves much more than just physical dependency on a drug. If it was just a matter of dependency on a drug, well, patches and gums would work just fine to get people off cigarettes, but they don't. We know what a 1.7% success rate they have, right? So addiction to smoking is obviously much more involved than just keeping a blood nicotine level up. No, that's part of it, but it's all that ritual involved and all that other stuff, and that's all another video. With electronic cigarettes, there is dependency on the nicotine, and I rather enjoy vaping. I think Raspberry Mojito from Pink Spot Vapors is actually a proof of the existence of God, and I enjoy it. But I wouldn't say I'm addicted to it. I'm definitely dependent on it, right? If I stopped, I'd go through withdrawal symptoms, and probably by 7 o'clock, I'd be at a liquor store buying a pack of cigarettes. But because there are no negative consequences, right? Financially, it doesn't make me careless of other people's welfare. It's not harming my health. It's not hurting me. So at the worst, I am dependent on it, and I'm certainly not addicted to it. And that's what everybody needs to appreciate. And once in a while, you see a doctor or researcher accurately describe that as a dependency rather than an addiction. But we as vapors need to make that distinction ourselves, that we're not addicted to e-cigs. We're dependent on nicotine, and that's not the same as addiction. So I want to thank you for watching this. I hope that made sense. Feel free to ask me questions. Please do good and avoid evil now, and above all, help to normalize vaping.
When Dimitri sent me the link to that, I was blown away. And again, I had not seen it. It's 5 years old, and it is so relevant today as it was back then that it's not even funny. A couple more people popped in, and I'm just sitting here ranting a little bit for the night, guys. I see Kyle and Jay. Welcome, gentlemen. Brenda, a good friend of mine. Mr. Rodman. This guy, Father Jack, turns around and he tells you straight up, it's not an addiction. So there can't be a nicotine effing epidemic to things that are going on out there. It's impossible. I don't give a shit what they're telling you. Their use of the term epidemic is 400,000% bullshit. And it is used as fear-mongering. It's used as garbage. And they need to get their head out of their ass. There's one more thing. After all of that, before we get into more of a fun side of the show for the evening, there's one more thing that caught my attention this was actually on Twitter, but it was so poignant. Check this out. If nicotine is so terrible for the brain, where are all the millions of brain-damaged former teen smokers? The whole brain damage case rests on a few ambiguous rodent studies by Mr. Clive Bates from the Australian Tobacco Harm Reduction Association. Where are all of those brain-damaged people? You would think that if they are actually brain-damaged people, by now they must be in parts of the government, in parts of the military, in parts of law enforcement, in parts of all of this. So if the FDA is turning around and saying it causes brain damage, how many screwed up people do we have in places of important positions that may or may not be able to function well? That's according to the FDA. That's not me, because I don't believe that it does a whole hell of a lot of harm in there. If that's true, where are all these people at now? How come we have not seen it? Teen smoking was huge in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't see anybody walking around going, I can't function. I don't see that. And it just makes me go, what the hell? We're going to take a break, and we are going to check out the smoke-free sponsors. And if they'll stick with us, I hope that they will continue to do so. We'll be right back.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor, with locations in Florida, and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar, locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com. And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
My God, I've got technical difficulties running all over the place. Push my mute button. I'm done ranting and raving for this evening. I want to get into something. I sat down, and in talking with Bill Tarling, I was going to actually do more of a video montage of a lot of things that had happened throughout my time. I've only been out here. This makes the 28th episode, but I started, I believe, back in June. And in that short period of time, I have been able to talk with a lot of outstanding people. So I grabbed some screen clips as I went along, and I want to share them with you for a few minutes. The very first show that I ever did, we talked about this educator that was teaching about vaping in the classroom, and that just blew my mind at the time. And that evening we spoke with a manager of Vaporize store down in Mississippi. And it was one of those things to where, okay, I've got an hour-long show. I'd never done one before. I was hobbled together with all kinds of stuff. But it was ironic because I, at like quarter till, started to spit, sputter, and go, oh my God, what am I doing? And thank God there's Bill Tarling coming in at the tail end of the show, called in, and kind of saved my bacon, without a doubt. That was our very first show. But then I got into a little bit more. Oh, come on. You are not going to do this now. I got into the second show. Our second show was with John Dietz. And John had been around up in PA, massively important, doing things over in PA in the legislature and trying to kill taxation and all kinds of stuff. And that was just, to me, again, it was such an educational phone call. And again, this is before I had any kind of capability to turn around and say, well, you know, we'll just connect with Zoom and have some video and audio and things like that. I was stuck in the Stone Age at that point. I had the little mixer and the phone lines, and I was praying to God it was all going to work together. But it was cool. It served its purpose at the time. So then we got into our next show, and again on the phone, and it was Jay Hardesty. Now, I had been able to meet Jay at the Tennessee show for the Vapors Carnival, and I'll tell you what an outstanding guy. And people think, they see this Amish collection, they think that he is a persona, but he's not. Honest to God, believe it or not, I live here in Ohio. Jay has family in a place called Middlefield, which is just about 30 minutes away from me. That blew my mind all the way around right there. The next show that we had was with James Jarvis. And James and I sat down and we talked on the phone. It was, again, such an educational kind of thing. Because here I am saying, you know, I'm new to all of this. I don't really know what's going on. And we talked about the importance of joining a state organization, the battery recycling that he was doing, all kinds of things. But it was, again, such an educational piece for me. So then our next one, the next one was something that was near and dear to my heart. And I felt bad because the phone lines absolutely fell apart. But it was with Mr. David Gorlitz. And it was really kind of cool to be able to talk to the former Winston man on the phone. Now, I had met him at Vapor Station, which is a store of James Jarvis. I met him, Fig Ramsey, Kevin Crowley, all in the same store, all at the same time. And the conversations that we had were amazing. Simply amazing. But it was nice to have him on the show. But then, right at the tail end of the show, Austin Hopper dialed in, and the whole thing just, I had technical difficulty, to say the least. So we had rescheduled him for another show. This lady is a little firecracker beyond doubt. And if I'm not mistaken, if Kyle is still in here, she works with Kyle, for Kyle. But you want to talk about a little pistol that runs around. She's, 5'6", maybe? You know, a little thing. I expected her to be more, I'm 5'10". And I'm thinking, okay, here's a lady that's tall, all of this. And I met her again in the Tennessee show. And this little lady comes up, and I'm like, hi. And just a ball of energy. What a phenomenal lady. You couldn't ask for anything better. She runs around. She's all over the place. She is just anything. But I told her, because of some of the things that she does that might be seen as provocative, I told her she has to come with her own warning label. There is no doubt about it. We moved on from then. I had Bill Tarling as well as Kevin Crowley on at the same time. And again, it was on the phone, so that was a really hobble-together kind of thing. But it was an awesome kind of thing to be able, here I am, this new guy, being able to have a couple of different people on the show was phenomenal. I had a great time. We spoke about advocacy. We spoke about things that were happening. And it just, again, all of these people that I kept speaking to as we go along, it just would blow my mind. The next one that came up right after that, this guy took the time, was absolutely 100% genuine. Greg Connolly. And he would take the time to listen to what I was asking, and he didn't try to run me off the road. He didn't try to make it whatever his verbiage was for the show or anything. It was just an amazing conversation. Again, I keep saying that, and I sound like a broken record, but all of the people that I talk to, anywhere, shops, you name it, any of the people that I was speaking with and that I know that I'll be able to talk with in the future, all of them, just some outstanding people. You can't tell. I love what I do. And I seriously, I want to say thank you to, now that it wants to bomb out? Yeah, I don't think so. But I seriously want to say thank you to Dimitri Agrafiotis for allowing me a spot on Smoke Free Radio. It means the world to me. Thank you to Bill Charling, because Bill was the one that said, yeah, I think that he still has open radio time. Give him a call. 24 hours later, we were up and moving. So we get past Greg Connolly. And I got to go back here, because it's just learning how to do all of this. We get past Greg, and I hit this guy. Now, Chris owns a shop on Vancouver Island in Vancouver, Canada, and I was so blown away because his main clientele are elderly people. Elderly. His conversion rate is phenomenal. And he just picked up a lot of material from the Aries and the Zenith tank and the MTL lines. And from my understanding, he is finding them to be phenomenal. As well as all the people that comes into his shop are finding them to be phenomenal. Then we get into, we did a screen change in all of this, and it was like, oh wow, hey, I'll start to play with graphics. And the first guy that I started with all of this was Jerry Reed. And Jerry's out on the East Coast, and he's doing his thing, and he's really getting things put together. And Jerry is huge for advocacy on the East Coast. But it was, again, the conversations that I'm having with folks, it's interesting, it is educational, it's funny. Then I got to talk with a gentleman by the name of Mark Bird. Mark is the head of, and started, and he now has a couple of partners, with the Vapors Carnival. And their next show is coming up in Oklahoma City. And their biggest thing that they tell people is, it is a expo to convert smokers to vaping. It's their big piece of it. And they have converted a lot of people as they've been going along. I know that they have. Well, right after we got done talking with Mark Bird, here again I got to back up. This guy, even though the screen is a little bit blurry, this guy put up with so much shit with me because my small board, my mixer at the time, was giving feedback and it was just having a cow. But Sherwin took the time and spoke with me about advocacy in the North Carolina state. And one of the biggest things that I remember coming from him and the show that I did with him was changing the verbiage of child appealing labels to inappropriate marketing and things like that, to get away from that particular stigma, if you will. So after we spoke with Sherwin further on, this guy, I keep talking about him. You see him on a couple of different shows. The biggest one is the Smoke Free Radio with Dimitri. This is Bill Tarling. Bill lives in Vancouver, Canada, on Vancouver Island. And he keeps track of something, and I'm going to go and take a look at it. It's called Vape Distortion. And I'm like, the things that he puts into Vape Distortion, all the news in the vaping community, all of the news that you would think that you need to look up, find, they're all in Vape Distortion. And it was ironic. The one time he turned around, he found a piece of legislation that was getting ready to go through in Akron, Ohio, which isn't very far. It's about an hour from me. And he paid attention to the news and everything else so closely. He knew about it before I did. Yeah. Yeah, the James, the show that I did with Dimitri and Patrick. For some reason, my stuff was just this little, I was all the way down in the corner. 60% of me. And then Patrick had to come along and just add on to it. You guys, you're killing me. So back up here again. The guy that we spoke with, there were times that, just like now, I didn't have anybody, but I wanted to get some points across. It was just a ball. We got back into this one again because I wanted to see what these two gentlemen, both Alan Davis and Sherwin Mena, I wanted to see what they were talking about, what they were thinking, their thoughts on how the vapor industry was going to go. And again, the show was informational. At times I really wanted just to swear and have all kinds of things, but both of these guys, massively educated in what's going on. This guy, and this was only a couple of shows ago, Matthew Salter, I wanted to talk to because I shit you not. I swear he is the eternal optimist when it comes to how the vaping industry is going to be able to survive. And I wanted to be able to talk to him to find out, where does that optimism come from? Is it self-delusional? Is it what? And the show that I was able to do with him, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I enjoyed every minute of it. But we get back to having with Matt. This guy I actually work with. He is our co-packer. Bill Wickstrom is down in Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And he is the president of the MSVAA. And we had a phenomenal conversation about his thoughts about the industry, where things might be going, what's going on. And just last week, I'll tell you what, you want to talk about a guy that has passion, and I mean a lot of passion for the industry, because New York State is still looking like they are facing a possible, they want to try to ram it through the legislation, they are facing a possible statewide flavor ban. It's going to be a foot race between them and California to who really gets what done. But it is ironic because I the first time that I ever met Andrew was at the Vapor Slam Expo in Syracuse, New York, back in 2017. And you want to talk about a guy that was on the stage and riveting, absolutely riveting. But it was one of the things that really helped me understand more about advocacy. Because before he came on, they were talking about all kinds of things and who was doing this and who was having sale and juice and who was giving free stuff. And there was a huge crowd. And they talked about and said, okay, it's time for our advocacy panel. And that crowd disappeared quicker than you could think. And he got up there. He still spoke. He didn't care if it was 2 people or 4,000. The passion, the level, everything was the same. And I've run into people that are just like that in all kinds of areas in the vaping industry since then. You know, it was one of those eye-opening kinds of moments. I'm not going to hang in here too much longer. Our hour's almost up. But here's the thing. We've had a long year. We've had a lot of ups and downs in the industry. It has been serious. It is going to remain serious. There are some large companies that are stepping up and helping to do things. There are a lot of companies that are turning a blind eye. And for the people that are watching or listening, I would tell you, if you have a shop, if you have a manufacturing side, join your state advocacy group. It is massively important that you do so. Huge, huge, huge. Get in, get educated, find out what's going on in your state. Work with them. Just Cincinnati, Ohio just fell to T21. That means that all of the shops down there and I've spoken with a lot of people, and it has become somewhat of a proven fact. When that got T21, they raised the age from 18 to 21 to purchase any tobacco products, and unfortunately that includes vapor products. Stores will lose a good percentage of their sales, which enables them to stay in the fight, which enables them to continue bringing harm reduction material to people. So get involved with your state group. Find out how you can be in there, how you can get things done. Be part of what's going on. Bill, I really appreciate that. They do. I don't have enough subscribers on a channel on YouTube to really put anything out there. But if you get on YouTube, and you can either follow the link with Bill, if you get on YouTube and just search for Mike P523, it indirectly leads you to where I'm at. I am going to be off the air. Oh, good Lord. I'm going to be gone until like the 2nd or 3rd of January. Just kind of unplugging, taking a break. So I hope that everybody can take the time during the holidays to enjoy themselves, enjoy family, kick back, relax a little bit, gear up, get ready for the next year coming up. Now, with that being said, because after this I'm just going to roll the end credit, the vaping industry, as some know or some pay attention, is not all serious side of things. And to wrap this up just for the end of the year, before I go, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody. But here's the proof that saying it's not all just serious. And earlier here in the show, special guest this evening is going to be joining me, is Mr. Bill Tarling, who is coming in from his place up in Canada. How you doing this evening, Bill?
Good to see you again, Mike.
Same with you, sir.
Quick little thing. When you have the tagline of the old guy and crazy guy, I hope I'm the crazy one. I'm not old. I mean, some people may have been expecting Phil Basardo. Now, I know I'm not as old as Phil Basardo, and I'm definitely not as good looking as Phil Basardo. But hey, folks, Pete Basardo here. I don't even know the Skechers.
Oh my God.
Timmy, Phil, Mike made me do that.
Oh. Bullshit! I didn't.